Most people behave differently when someone is observing them. They work harder when a boss is nearby, speak more politely when a camera is recording, and show discipline only when another pair of eyes is holding them accountable. But your real life, your real character, your real future is shaped in the moments when no one sees you. The quiet hours, the uncelebrated choices, the private battles you fight when the world isn't paying attention. You already know that your life does not fall apart in one big dramatic moment. It slips, slowly, in the small decisions you take casually. The nights when you say you will sleep early but stay awake scrolling. The mornings when you promise yourself a fresh start but hit the alarm again. The commitments you make to yourself and then quietly break because no one else will know. Every time you do that, you teach your mind something powerful. You teach it that your own word is negotiable, that your promises are optional, that you are willing to disappoint yourself as long as nobody witnesses it. But there is a quiet truth that separates people of strength from people of excuses. Life eventually exposes who you trained yourself to become in private. Nothing hidden stays hidden. The way you lead yourself in silence becomes the way you live your life in the open. Think about every moment you struggled alone, the effort you put into something with no applause, the choices you made to stay disciplined when you could have chosen comfort. Those are the moments that built you, the ones no one else even remembers. But you remember. And somewhere inside, you know whether you have lived as your own leader or as your own obstacle. This audiobook exists for a reason, to help you build the kind of discipline that grows when no one is watching, to help you strengthen the version of yourself that people never see, because the world only meets the results, not the struggle. And if your internal foundation is weak, no external success will survive for long. You are listening to this because something in you is tired of depending on external pressure to behave like the person you want to be. You want consistency without supervision. You want strength without validation. You want a life that does not crumble when there is no one holding you accountable. And that desire is rare. Most people only work hard when the world demands it. But you, right now, are choosing to rise without witnesses, and that choice itself is the beginning of leadership. Leadership is not a position, a title, or a spotlight. Leadership is the quiet moment when you decide to act with integrity, even though no reward is waiting. Leadership is keeping your promises to yourself when breaking them would be easier. Leadership is doing the right thing, not because someone might find out, but because you would find out. And the truth is simple. If you can lead yourself in the dark, you can lead your life in the light. You do not need motivation for this. You do not need applause. You do not need anyone to push you. What you need is the ability to look at your private habits and admit the truth. Are they taking you forward or quietly destroying you? Are they making you stronger or slowly weakening the future you want? The difference between people who rise and people who remain stuck is not talent, intelligence, or luck. It is the invisible discipline they practice when they are alone. It is the standards they refuse to lower just because the world is not checking. It is the small decisions, consistent, unglamorous, unseen, that compound into power. This audiobook will take you through that journey. Not the journey of being motivated for a day, but the journey of becoming the kind of person who guides their own life without needing external pressure. You will understand why your private actions shape your public destiny. You will learn how to build discipline in silence, how to train your thoughts, how to master your behavior in the quiet hours, and how to become someone whose internal strength is stronger than external temptation. By the end of this audiobook, you will understand something that very few people ever realize. The true leaders of life are not the loud ones, not the visible ones, not the ones who speak the most. The true leaders are the people who mastered themselves when there was no audience. They built skills when others wasted time. They stayed consistent when others were inconsistent. They lived with purpose when others lived with convenience. They became unshakable because their life was built on private integrity, not public performance. If you want to live that kind of life, steady, strong, respected, not because others are watching, but because you are watching yourself, then this is your moment. This is your beginning. And if this audiobook brings you strength, or clarity, or even one moment that shifts your direction, then make sure you subscribe to Prestige Audiobooks for daily new audiobooks, and support this journey with a like, a comment, and a share, because every action you take shapes who you are becoming. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The silent standard you set for yourself. When you are alone, there is no applause to encourage you, no criticism to pressure you, and no witness to judge you. That is exactly why those private moments decide who you become. People misunderstand discipline. They think it is about following rules. They think it is about being strict. They think it is about forcing yourself to do difficult things. But the truth is deeper. Discipline is the silent standard you set for yourself when no one else will know whether you kept it. You have lived long enough to notice this pattern. When someone is watching, you naturally give more effort. When you know you will be evaluated, you naturally perform better. When someone expects something from you, you naturally rise to the expectation. But when the expectation disappears, when no one sees your preparation, when the only person you can disappoint is yourself, that is where most people fall. And they fall quietly. Not with a loud collapse, but with small decisions they excuse. 5 more minutes in bed. 1 day of skipped work. A small promise postponed. A habit delayed. A commitment softened. Not because it was impossible to follow through, but because no one was there to hold them accountable. If you think deeply, you will realize that your biggest losses in life never came from someone else failing you. They came from the times you failed yourself when you were alone. They came from the things you knew you needed to do but didn't. They came from the moments where you chose ease over integrity. And every time you did that, your mind remembered. It remembered that your own word was flexible, that your goals were negotiable, that your standards depended on circumstances, not on character. You already know how painful it feels when someone breaks a promise to you. But what damages your confidence the most is when you break your own promises. You might think you can ignore it, but deep inside, your self-respect erodes a little. You start seeing yourself as someone who cannot be relied on, someone who needs pressure to behave well, someone who needs supervision to stay consistent. And over time, that belief becomes your identity. This is the myth many people live with, that they can become great while being inconsistent in private, that they can build a strong future with weak habits, that they can grow while doing the bare minimum when no one is around. But nothing in life works like that. The world rewards the person you are when no one sees you. Your career reflects it. Your health reflects it. Your relationships reflect it. Your mind reflects it. Everything you experience publicly is built from the small, quiet decisions you made privately. There is a reason why you admire certain people. Not because they are perfect, but because they have demonstrated a level of inner strength that is rare. They are reliable even when no one checks on them. They work even when no praise is waiting. They make decisions based on principles rather than moods. They show discipline without being forced. This inner stability radiates outward, and that is why people respect them. But here is the part you must understand. No one is born this way. Every strong person you admire built their strength in silence. They had nights when they were tired, but they pushed through anyway. They had mornings when motivation was low, but their commitment was higher. They had days when no one appreciated their effort, but they still held their standard. They trained themselves to act according to their values instead of their circumstances. If you want to live with that level of self-respect, you have to start with one question. What do you do when no one is watching? Not what you plan, not what you talk about, not what you dream, what you do. Because action is the only honest measurement of who you are becoming. If you say you want discipline, but you only act when motivated, you don't want discipline, you want excitement. If you say you want success, but you only try when someone pushes you, you don't want success, you want supervision. If you say you want growth, but you only work when life feels easy, you don't want growth, you want comfort. The life you want demands a different version of you, a version that treats private moments as the real test, a version that asks, what would a leader do right now? And then does it. Not later. Not when it feels good. Not when someone is watching. But now in silence, when your character is being shaped. You have to understand the weight of your choices. Every time you keep a private promise, you build trust with yourself. You teach your mind that you can rely on your own word. You strengthen your identity. You train your discipline. You become someone whose actions do not depend on the environment. This is the shift most people never make. They wait for the right mood. They wait for the right day. They wait for motivation. But motivation is unstable. Motivation cannot be trusted. Motivation may or may not show up. Discipline is different. Discipline is cold. Discipline is stable. Discipline is predictable. Discipline says, this is what I do, regardless of how I feel. And when you begin to live by that, everything changes. You start waking up with clarity instead of chaos. You start handling your tasks without fear. You start trusting yourself. You start feeling powerful because your life is no longer controlled by your emotions. But the most important change happens inside. The moment you keep your word in private, you feel something deep. Self-respect. You begin to like who you are. You begin to rely on yourself. You begin to feel stable. And that feeling is worth more than any praise or validation from others. This chapter is the foundation of everything that will come next, because before you learn how to build routines, habits, consistency, emotional strength, or mental control, you must understand this one truth. Nothing matters more than what you do when no one is watching. That is the birthplace of discipline, the origin of leadership, and the root of every transformation you will experience. Chapter 2. The person you become in the dark. When the lights are off and the world grows quiet, every distraction disappears. There is no one to impress, no standards to match, no expectations to fulfill. It's only you, your choices, and the version of yourself you are slowly becoming. This is where your real life unfolds. Not in crowded rooms, not in busy conversations, not in public achievements, but in the invisible space where your thoughts meet your actions. Most people spend their entire lives trying to look disciplined, instead of actually being disciplined. They want the reputation without the requirements. They want the respect without the sacrifice, and they want the image without the integrity. And because of this, their external lives become polished masks hiding internal instability. But your mind knows the truth. You cannot lie to yourself about the life you live in private. You cannot pretend that you are consistent if your habits collapse when no one is looking. You cannot claim strength if you only act strong when the world is watching. The person you are in the dark is the one who shapes your destiny, because when the world is silent, you make the choices that truly matter. There are two versions of you living inside your life. The one the world sees and the one only you see. And the one you see is the one that decides everything. When you stay up late doing something that weakens you instead of something that strengthens you, the world might never know. But you know. When you procrastinate on something important because you assume tomorrow will be easier, no one may judge you. But you judge yourself. When you give up on a goal, not because it's impossible, but because it's uncomfortable, you may hide it from others, but you cannot hide it from yourself. And your inner self always responds, sometimes with shame, sometimes with guilt, sometimes with fear. But the most dangerous response is numbness. When you start breaking your own promises so often that you stop feeling anything about it, when disappointment becomes your normal, when inconsistency becomes your personality, when you begin believing that this is just who I am, nothing destroys potential faster than that belief. But here is the truth you need to hold on to. Who you are in the dark is not fixed. It is moldable, changeable, trainable. The same way a muscle grows with pressure, your private identity grows with conscious behavior. Every strong person you admire built themselves in silence long before anyone admired them. Every successful person you praise earned their strength in hours no one noticed. Every disciplined person you look up to created their discipline in private battles with themselves. You are no different. You are not too late. You are not too weak. You are not too damaged. You are simply untrained in the art of self-leadership. And self-leadership begins with honesty. You must be willing to look at the choices you make when no one is watching and ask yourself whether those choices reflect the person you claim to want to be. Not the person you plan to be someday, not the person you pretend to be publicly, the person you are actually becoming through repetition. If your private habits are built on excuses, your public life will be built on instability. If your private habits are built on comfort, your public life will be built on regret. But if your private habits are built on discipline, strength, and clarity, your public life will reflect power and confidence, even without you trying. The world meets your results, not your intentions. Your intentions live inside your mind, but your results come from your behavior, and your behavior is formed in silence. You must understand the weight of this. Your private environment is shaping your identity every day. If you spend your unobserved hours scrolling endlessly, you are training your mind to choose distraction over direction. If you waste your late nights on temporary pleasures, you are teaching yourself that short-term comfort matters more than long-term growth. If you avoid the responsibilities that could elevate your life, you are signaling to your brain that resistance is stronger than your will. But imagine a different path. Imagine you walk into your room at night and instead of wasting time, you sit down and work on your goals. The world does not see it. There is no applause, but your mind notices. It grows more confident, more stable, more disciplined. Imagine you wake up early not because someone told you to, but because you told yourself to. And you listened. That builds trust. Imagine you decide to live with a sense of purpose even in the moments no one acknowledges. This is how leaders are built. Quietly, consistently, intentionally. And when people later say, "You changed overnight," you will know the truth. You changed in the nights, in the quiet hours, in the uncelebrated minutes. You built momentum when no one cared. You built strength when no one cheered. You built character when no one clapped. You built discipline when no one even knew you were trying. Eventually, the world will notice the results, but they will never understand the private battles that created them. This chapter is about recognizing that the darkness is not your enemy. The silence is not your weakness. These moments are your training ground. They are the space where you move from who you were to who you want to become. And the more seriously you take those moments, the more powerful your life becomes. You don't need the world to watch you. You don't need an audience to improve. You don't need applause to be consistent. You need one thing: the courage to act according to the person you want to be, not the person you used to be. And you need to do it when no one will ever give you credit for it, because that is where transformation begins. Chapter 3: The promise you make to your future self. Every day, without speaking a word, you make promises to your future self. You make them through the choices you take, the habits you repeat, the actions you avoid, and the standards you set for yourself when no one is around to judge you. These promises are not dramatic or poetic. They are quiet, subtle, almost invisible, but they shape the direction of your entire life. When you decide to stay consistent with a habit, you are promising your future self strength. When you choose discipline over comfort, you are promising your future self progress. When you keep your commitments even when no one is watching, you are promising your future self a stable, powerful foundation to build from. But when you break these private promises, your future self pays the price. You might not feel it immediately. You might even convince yourself that one skipped day or one broken commitment doesn't matter. But deep inside, something shifts. Every time you choose the easier path simply because no one will find out, you weaken the trust between who you are and who you want to become. Think of trust as a bridge. It does not collapse in one day. It collapses piece by piece, one weak plank at a time. Every unkept promise is a plank removed. Every excuse is a crack. Every moment you prioritize comfort over growth is another weight pulling that bridge down. And one day, without warning, the whole structure gives up, and you find yourself wondering why your life feels stuck, why your confidence has faded, why you no longer believe in your own potential. Your mind remembers everything you do in silence. It remembers whether you honored your intentions or abandoned them. It remembers whether you kept going or gave up. And it uses this memory to define who you are allowed to become. If your mind learns that your commitments are fragile, it will never fully support your ambitions. It will treat your goals as wishes, not decisions. It will treat your dreams as fantasies, not responsibilities. But if your mind learns that your word is final, that your discipline is non-negotiable, that your standards remain the same whether watched or unwatched, everything changes. You begin to live with a quiet power, a calm strength, an inner stability that does not rise or fall with circumstances. To understand this deeply, you must look at your own life. Think about the areas where you are proud of yourself. Those moments did not happen by accident. They came from private decisions you made long before anyone noticed. They came from nights where you chose work over distraction. They came from mornings where you chose effort over comfort. They came from moments where no one saw you, but your future self benefited. But also think about the moments you regret. Not the dramatic ones. Those are easy to remember. Think about the small daily choices. The times you delayed progress because you thought you had time. The nights you wasted. The habits you broke. The shortcuts you took. The dreams you touched lightly but never committed to. Those quiet choices shaped your regrets just as powerfully as discipline shapes your achievements. The truth is simple. You are always investing in your future self. The only question is whether you are investing strength or regret. People assume their future will magically improve without changing their private behavior. They assume they will somehow become more focused later, more disciplined later, more serious later. But later doesn't change anything. Later only reflects what you repeatedly choose now. If your present actions are weak, your future will be built on weakness. If your present actions are strong, your future will be built on strength. You must learn to think long-term even in your smallest decisions. When you are tempted to skip a responsibility, ask yourself what version of you is waiting on the other side of that decision. When you feel lazy, ask yourself which identity you are feeding. When you think no one will know, remember that one person will always know: your future self. Imagine your future self standing in front of you. Imagine the life they want. Imagine the opportunities they are hoping you won't ruin. Imagine the habits they need you to build now so they can live with freedom later. Every private moment you face is a conversation between you and that future self. Every time you stay committed, you are telling them, "I've got you." Every time you give up, you are telling them, "You will suffer for my choices." And that is why discipline matters so deeply. It is not about punishment. It is not about strictness. It is not about forcing yourself to be someone you're not. Discipline is the love you show your future self. Discipline is the respect you show your own potential. Discipline is the promise you make to someone who does not exist yet, but will exist because of your decisions today. When you start viewing your private choices this way, something shifts inside you. You stop thinking about comfort. You stop thinking about convenience. You stop thinking about whether anyone will notice. Your focus moves to a deeper question. What kind of future am I creating through this choice? And when that becomes your mindset, your entire life evolves. The person you become in public will be shaped by the promises you honor in private. Your confidence will grow not because others believe in you, but because you believe in yourself. Your discipline will strengthen not because someone motivates you, but because you trust your own decisions. Your life will improve not because you were lucky, but because you kept your word to your future self when no one else even knew there was a promise to keep. This is the heart of self-leadership, honoring the invisible choices that shape your destiny. Chapter 4: The Private Standards That Shape Your Destiny. Every great life is built on a set of standards. Not public standards, not the rules society expects you to follow, but the private, personal standards that guide your behavior when there is no praise, no audience, and no accountability. These unseen standards are the blueprint of your destiny. They decide how far you go, how strong you become, and how much you rise above the average person who only tries when someone is judging them. Most people live with shifting standards. They give their best only when the situation demands it. They act disciplined only when someone is watching. They clean their room when guests arrive. They focus only when a deadline is near. And they behave decently only when they fear being exposed. Their standards bend under pressure, inflate under observation, and collapse in private. What they do not realize is that their private standards quietly write the story of their future. A person with high public standards but low private standards will always struggle, always feel unstable, always battle with inconsistency, because when your internal world is weak, your external world eventually reflects it. If you want a powerful life, your private standards must be higher than your public ones. This is what separates the extraordinary from the ordinary. Most people set their standards based on the minimum required. But leaders set their standards based on the maximum they are capable of. They do not need a reason to give effort. They give effort because it aligns with who they want to be. They do not need encouragement to stay disciplined. They stay disciplined because their identity demands it. They do not need applause to stay consistent. They stay consistent because their private standards are unshakable. Your private standards decide your personal gravity. They pull your actions toward a certain level, no matter how you feel or where you are. If your standards are low, you will always fall back to low performance. If your standards are high, you will rise, even without motivation, even without pressure, even without anyone watching. Think back to the times you surprised yourself with your own strength. You handled something with confidence when you expected to fail. You pushed through a difficult moment when giving up was easier. You stayed calm when the situation demanded panic. Those moments were not accidents. They were the result of private standards you had unconsciously trained over time. You performed beyond expectation because your inner identity lifted you up. This is the same mechanism that makes certain people reliable in every situation. They have trained themselves to hold a certain baseline of behavior, even on bad days, even when tired, even when unmotivated. Their standards do not fluctuate with circumstances. They act with integrity because their internal rules allow nothing less. This consistency makes them dependable, respected, and strong. If you want to build that kind of strength, you must examine your own private standards honestly. Not the standards you talk about, not the standards you plan, the standards you live by, the ones reflected in your daily habits. Look at your mornings. Do you wake up when you said you would, or do you negotiate with the alarm every day? Look at your goals. Do you work on them daily or only when you feel inspired? Look at your responsibilities. Do you complete them on time or only when pressure forces you? Look at your choices. Do you act according to your principles or do your moods decide your behavior? Every question exposes a private standard. Every private standard points to a future, and your future will never rise above what you repeatedly tolerate in your private life. Your standards must be chosen with intention. You cannot allow comfort, laziness, or exhaustion to choose for you. You must decide the baseline of behavior you will accept from yourself, and everything else in your life must align with that baseline. A powerful private standard sounds like this: I do not break promises to myself. I do what needs to be done even when no one will know. My emotions do not decide my discipline. My effort remains steady in public and in private. I act according to who I want to become, not how I feel today. When you repeat these standards in action, not words, you begin to transform. You start trusting yourself. You start feeling grounded. You start earning internal respect. And that internal respect becomes the fuel that external motivation could never provide. People search for confidence everywhere. They look for it in motivation videos, books, compliments, achievements. But the real source of confidence is private integrity. It is the knowledge that you can rely on yourself. It is the understanding that you do what you say you will do. It is the quiet pride that comes from keeping your standards high in the dark. You cannot fake this. You cannot pretend your standards are high if your private behavior is weak. Your mind knows the truth, and it will only allow you to feel confident when you consistently live above minimum expectations. When your private standards rise, your entire life rises with them. You start eating with discipline even when no one cares. You start working with focus even when no one rewards you. You start speaking with honesty even when no one praises it. You start training your mind and body even when no one sees the effort. And slowly, those quiet actions shape a destiny louder than any words you could ever say. Because the world eventually meets the person you built in silence. This chapter is a reminder that your standards are not suggestions. They are the foundation of your character. Lift them, strengthen them, protect them. They are shaping your future every single day, even in the moments when you think no one is watching. Chapter 5. The choices you make when no one can save you. There comes a point in every person's life where no advice, no support, no encouragement, and no supervision can rescue them. A moment where the only thing standing between who they are and who they want to be is a single private choice they must make alone. That choice may seem small, unimportant, forgettable, but that is the choice that shapes everything. People often believe their lives are changed by big decisions, but big decisions are rare. What truly shapes your future are the quiet choices you make in silence, the ones no one asks about, the ones no one sees, the ones you could easily walk away from without consequence, at least in the moment. But every private choice carries a hidden weight, and that weight shapes your character long before it shapes your results. Think about the moments where everything depended on you. Not the moments where others pushed you, motivated you, or reminded you. The moments where no one checked on you. The moments where no one told you what to do. The moments where failure or progress depended entirely on your willingness to act without guidance. Maybe it was a late night where you had the chance to prepare for something important and chose comfort instead. Maybe it was an early morning where you promised yourself you would wake up, but the silence of the room killed your resolve. Maybe it was a day where you told yourself you would take a step toward your dream, but because no one else was holding you accountable, you backed away. These moments define you far more than any public success ever will. The truth you must face is simple. Most people do not fail because they lack potential. They fail because they avoid private responsibility. They want someone to push them. They want someone to check on them. They want someone to make sure they stay disciplined. They want someone to save them from their own tendencies. But no one can save you from the choices you make when you're alone. That burden belongs entirely to you. At some point, you must lead yourself without expecting a rescue. If you want to grow, you must understand something most people never accept. No one is coming to fix your life. No one is coming to force you to work. No one is coming to make you disciplined. No one is coming to wake you up early. No one is coming to take away your distractions. No one is coming to save you from your excuses. You must save yourself. And you save yourself through action, small, unseen action. This is the kind of action that does not require applause or praise. It only requires courage. The courage to act when doing nothing is easier. The courage to choose responsibility when comfort is whispering your name. The courage to make decisions that benefit your future instead of your mood. You already know the choices that hold you back. Every person has a pattern, a weak point, a habit they turn to when comfort calls. The mind creates excuses so quickly it becomes automatic. It doesn't matter. I'll start tomorrow. I'll catch up later. These sentences feel harmless, even logical, but each one pushes your future further away. This is why private responsibility is powerful. It exposes the truth of who you are. Without pressure, your real habits appear. Without supervision, your real priorities surface. Without an audience, your real discipline reveals itself. And once you see this truth, you have two options: deny it and stay the same, or confront it and change. Change does not begin with motivation. Change begins with ownership. Ownership of your choices. Ownership of your patterns. Ownership of your silence. Ownership of the fact that the life you want requires decisions that no one can make for you. You are not powerless. You are simply unpracticed in leading yourself. When you begin taking responsibility for your actions in private, something shifts inside you. You stop waiting for the perfect moment. You stop expecting help. You stop looking for shortcuts. You begin realizing that every small disciplined action strengthens you. Every completed promise builds trust. Every respected commitment shapes your identity. And slowly, your private world becomes more stable, more intentional, more aligned with who you want to be. This is how you grow unshakable, not by hoping for motivation, but by acting with responsibility in moments where you could have easily escaped accountability. Imagine your life 1 year from now if you started taking responsibility for every private moment. Imagine your body, your mind, your work, your confidence, if you stopped hiding behind moods and started acting from discipline. Imagine how unstoppable you would feel if you lived every day as if no one was coming to save you, and you didn't need them to. You would be stronger than circumstances, stronger than excuses, stronger than fear, because you would no longer be a follower of your emotions. You would be a leader of your actions. This chapter is not about forcing yourself into perfection. It is about understanding that your life is built one private choice at a time. Each choice is a brick. Weak choices build a weak life. Strong choices build a strong one. And the strongest life of all is built in silence. One responsible decision after another. The world will see the results eventually, but only you will ever know the truth. Success was built in the moments where no one could save you, and you saved yourself. Chapter 6. Who you are when the world goes quiet. There is a version of you that only appears when everything around you becomes quiet, when the noise stops, when the conversations end, when the distractions fade, when there is no one to please, no one to impress, no one to compare yourself to, and no one to judge you. That version of you is the most honest, the most vulnerable, and the most powerful reflection of your character. The world often praises your public self, the one that shows up for others, performs under pressure, and behaves well when expectation demands it. But the world never sees the private self, the one who sits alone with their thoughts, the one who faces silent fears, the one who wrestles with habits, the one who decides whether to stay disciplined or surrender to comfort. That private self determines everything, because your life is not shaped by who you pretend to be. It is shaped by who you truly are when nobody is watching. Most people run from silence because silence reveals truth, and truth is heavy. Truth shows you the habits you've neglected, the dreams you've delayed, the responsibilities you've avoided. Truth shows you the gap between who you say you want to be and who you currently are. And facing that gap requires courage. Some avoid silence with noise. They fill their days with social media, entertainment, conversations, and constant movement. They fear being alone with themselves because solitude forces them to confront the reality of their life. But you cannot grow while hiding from yourself. You cannot lead your life if you cannot sit alone with it. The quiet moments are not empty. They are mirrors. And if you look into them long enough, you will see the truth of your discipline, your intentions, and your character. When the world goes quiet, do you rise or do you fall? Do you live according to your goals or according to your moods? Do you follow the path of effort or the path of ease? These questions decide whether you lead your life or simply drift through it. The people who shape their destinies are not the ones who act well in public. They are the ones who act well in private. They treat solitude as training. They use quiet moments to sharpen themselves. They build habits that no one else acknowledges. They practice discipline without needing recognition. And because of this, they become powerful beyond measure. If you look closely at your own life, you will notice a pattern. The times you grew the most were not in crowded rooms or under bright lights. They were in the isolated moments where you had to choose discipline without applause. Maybe it was the night you stayed focused when everyone else slept. Maybe it was a weekend where you worked while others relaxed. Maybe it was a private decision to let go of an unhealthy habit, even though no one knew you were struggling. These moments shape you precisely because they are private. They force you to lead yourself. They force you to rely on your own strength. They force you to act with integrity without needing a witness. This is the foundation of self-leadership, choosing strength in silence. But in order to choose strength, you must understand your relationship with solitude. Solitude can feel uncomfortable at first. You might feel restless. You might feel uncertain. You might feel exposed. But in reality, solitude is your greatest ally. It gives you space to think clearly. It gives you space to grow intentionally. It gives you space to make decisions without influence. The people who fear solitude often rely on external noise to distract themselves from internal truths. But those who embrace solitude develop a level of mental clarity that cannot be purchased, taught, or borrowed. Ask yourself one simple question. When the world is quiet, do you like the person you are? If the answer is no, that is not a reason to feel shame. It is a reason to take responsibility. The quiet moments of your day are opportunities to build the version of yourself you want to respect. They are the foundation on which you can rebuild discipline, identity, and purpose. Silence teaches you self-control. It teaches you patience. It teaches you independence. It teaches you honesty. It teaches you strength. And most importantly, it teaches you how to lead yourself when no one else is guiding you. When you use your quiet hours intentionally, everything changes. You begin to notice your thoughts instead of being controlled by them. You begin to choose actions that support your future instead of actions that satisfy your mood. You begin to understand what truly matters and what no longer deserves your energy. The moment you start embracing silence instead of avoiding it, you awaken a new version of yourself, one who is grounded, disciplined, and focused. One who no longer needs motivation to act. One who no longer needs pressure to stay consistent. One who no longer needs approval to feel worthy. A leader is not someone who controls others. A leader is someone who controls themselves. And the only environment where true self-control is tested is in silence. When the world goes quiet, rise. When distraction fades, focus. When comfort calls, resist. When no one is watching, lead yourself. Because every silent moment is a chance to become the strongest version of you. Chapter 7: The Habits That Define You When No One Is Checking. Every person has habits that guide their life, but very few understand how those habits were formed. Most habits were never consciously created. They grew out of convenience, impulse, repetition, and emotion. They settled into your life quietly, without permission, without planning, without intention. And now they are steering your days even when you think you're choosing your actions. Habits are the invisible architecture of your life. They dictate how you think, how you act, how you respond, and how you move through the world. But the most important truth about habits is this: they reveal who you really are when no one is checking. It is easy to behave well when eyes are on you. It is easy to show discipline when someone expects it. It is easy to be consistent when accountability surrounds you. But your real habits, the ones that shape your destiny, are the ones you fall back on in private, without pressure, without supervision, without judgment. The question you must ask is not, what do I want to become? The real question is, what am I repeatedly choosing when no one is checking? Because those choices are building your identity every day. You might not notice it, but your habits are shaping your self-respect. Every time you act in alignment with your goals, even when no one will know, your mind grows stronger. Every time you take the easy way out, even when no one will confront you, your mind becomes weaker. And the more these behaviors repeat, the more they define you. You cannot rise above the habits you practice in silence. They are stronger than your mood, stronger than your excuses, stronger than your intentions. Habits shape your direction quietly, consistently, and powerfully. Think about your daily life. When you wake up, what is the first habit you follow? Do you check your phone or do you check your purpose? Do you begin your day intentionally or reactively? Do you fall into distraction or discipline? The first moments of your day reveal more about your leadership than your biggest successes. Now think about your evenings. When the day ends and the noise fades, how do you spend your time? Do you drift into mindless entertainment? Do you waste hours doing nothing meaningful? Or do you use the quiet to invest in yourself? These private choices determine your growth far more than your public actions ever will. Your habits are not just routines, they are agreements you make with yourself, and these agreements become your destiny. If your habits say, "I take care of myself," your future will reflect strength. If your habits say, "I avoid hard things," your future will reflect weakness. If your habits say, "I do just enough," your future will reflect mediocrity. If your habits say, "I will try tomorrow," your future will reflect regret. If your habits say, "I act now," your future will reflect progress. Every private habit is a whisper to your destiny. But most people treat habits lightly. They assume a skipped day doesn't matter. They assume a small distraction is harmless. They assume inconsistency will somehow be fixed later. What they don't understand is that habits compound the same way money does. Each repetition, good or bad, grows interest. And the interest becomes your identity. This is why people wake up one day feeling lost. They look at their life and realize it is far from what they wanted. But the truth is, their life didn't drift away in one moment. It drifted away through thousands of tiny habits they ignored. They didn't lose control. They handed it over, one choice at a time. But here is the powerful part. Just like one small habit can ruin your future, one small habit can also rebuild it. You do not need to change your entire life today. You only need to start altering what you do in the quiet moments. If you change your private habits, your public life will follow automatically. You don't have to shout about it. You don't have to announce it. You don't have to tell anyone. You simply have to act differently in silence. Begin with one habit, one simple discipline that strengthens you. It could be reading before bed. It could be exercising at dawn. It could be writing your goals each evening. It could be drinking water instead of reaching for comfort foods. It could be cleaning your space before sleeping. What matters is not the habit itself. What matters is that you begin proving something to yourself, that you can lead your actions even without external force. Once you master one habit, you'll feel a shift. You'll feel more in control, more confident, more grounded, because your brain will start to believe you again. Once you have regained that trust, adding more habits becomes easier. Discipline becomes natural. Consistency becomes your default instead of your struggle. Your life will not improve because you hope it will. It will improve because you are training it to. Look back at the habits that hurt you. They never required effort to repeat. They were easy, comfortable, automatic. But the habits that elevate you will never be formed on accident. They require intention. They require leadership. They require repetition during moments where your mind wants to escape responsibility. This is why most people never build powerful habits. They depend on motivation instead of systems. Motivation comes and goes, but systems stay. Motivation is emotional, but habits are mechanical. Motivation fades when you're tired, but habits remain. Motivation works with an audience, but habits work alone. Your goal is not to feel disciplined, it is to become disciplined. And becoming disciplined does not start in public. It begins in the hidden moments where no one claps, no one watches, no one validates you. You lead yourself through those moments because that is where your character is built. Imagine your future self again. Imagine the life they want. Imagine the strength they need. Imagine the opportunities you hope they will experience. Every habit you practice in silence reaches forward in time and builds a piece of that person. They are depending on you. They can only be as strong as the habits you create now. Your private habits are not just routines. They are the foundation of your destiny. If you want a powerful life, you must build powerful habits in the dark. No shortcuts, no excuses, no waiting for the perfect moment. The moment is now. The silence is your training ground, and the habits you build today will decide who you become tomorrow. Chapter 8: The discipline to do the right thing when no one knows. There is a kind of discipline that no one talks about. It is not the discipline you show in the gym, or in school, or at work. It is not the discipline you display when people are watching. It is the discipline to do the right thing when the world will never know you did it. The discipline to choose integrity, even when there is no reward, no applause, no recognition. That discipline is the foundation of every strong, stable, and successful life. Most people live in a way that is completely dependent on visibility. They work hard when they are seen. They behave well when it benefits them. They stay consistent when someone else is tracking their progress. Their discipline is borrowed, not built. It relies on external pressure instead of internal strength. But those who rise to the top of their lives carry a different kind of power. They live with a private code, a quiet set of principles that guide their actions whether anyone is watching or not. Their integrity is not controlled by visibility. Their discipline is not fueled by praise. Their behavior is not shaped by who notices. It is shaped by who they want to become. This is the difference between someone who acts like a leader and someone who is a leader. Think about a moment where you had a choice to do the right thing privately. Maybe it was telling the truth when a lie would have protected you. Maybe it was completing a task no one would check. Maybe it was resisting a temptation that no one else knew existed. Maybe it was doing work thoroughly even when shortcuts were possible. You were. The world may never know what you did, but you know. Your mind knows. Your future knows. And those choices, invisible as they may seem, shape the structure of your identity. Every private act of discipline strengthens your character. Every private act of avoidance weakens it. People often confuse discipline with strength, but true discipline comes from values, not from willpower. If your values are weak, your discipline collapses the moment temptation arrives. If your values are strong, your discipline stands firm even when no one is there to hold you accountable. The question you must ask yourself is simple. What values guide your private actions? Not the values you speak about, not the values others assume you have. The values you practice in the hidden hours when no one is watching. Those values reveal the truth of who you are becoming. If you cut corners in private, you are training yourself to cut corners in life. If you lie to yourself in private, you are training yourself to lie in the world. If you avoid responsibility in private, you are training yourself to collapse under pressure. If you prioritize comfort in private, you are training yourself to surrender in challenges. If you choose discipline in private, you are training yourself to handle life with strength. If you choose integrity in private, you are training yourself to be unbreakable. Everything begins with the choices you make when there is no witness. You already know how it feels when you break your own principles. There is a quiet disappointment, a silent guilt, a slow erosion of confidence. You might ignore it, distract yourself, or pretend it doesn't matter. But your mind remembers. Every time you abandon your principles in private, your self-respect takes a hit. And self-respect does not return through words, it returns through disciplined action. But when you choose the right thing in private, even when it is difficult, even when no one sees it, you feel something powerful. A quiet pride, a sense of stability, a deeper trust in yourself. These moments become the invisible pillars of your character. Imagine this. Two people are given the same challenges, the same time, the same opportunities. One of them chooses to do the right thing only when someone is watching. The other chooses to do the right thing even in silence. Their results may look similar for a while, but eventually the second person rises far above the first, not because of talent, not because of luck, but because their character was built in a deeper place. The world sees your success, but only you see the discipline that created it. And the stronger your private discipline becomes, the more stable your public life will be. To strengthen this discipline, you must practice 3 things. First, honesty with yourself. You must be willing to admit when you are choosing comfort over integrity. You must be willing to admit when you are avoiding what you know is right. The moment you stop lying to yourself is the moment your discipline starts to grow. Second, alignment with your future. Every time you make a private decision, ask yourself if it supports the person you want to become. If it does, do it. If it doesn't, stop. This simple practice trains your mind to prioritize purpose over pleasure. Third, accountability without supervision. You must learn to hold yourself responsible without needing anyone else to check on you. When you become your own overseer, your power multiplies. You become someone who leads themselves, not someone who needs to be led. Once this way of living becomes natural, something incredible happens. Your confidence grows because you trust yourself. Your discipline strengthens because your values guide you. Your life becomes stable because your integrity is not conditional, and the world begins to respect you, not because you demanded it, but because you earned it in private. The discipline to do the right thing when no one knows may feel invisible, but it is the force that shapes your destiny. It is the quiet armor that protects you. It is the silent engine that moves you. It is the unseen foundation that makes everything else possible. You will not rise because people witnessed your discipline. You will rise because you practiced discipline even when they didn't. Chapter 9. The standards you keep when you could get away with less. Every person reaches moments in life where they could easily do the bare minimum, and no one would ever know. Moments where cutting corners is possible. Moments where lowering your standards won't lead to any immediate consequences. Moments where no one is checking, no one is observing, no one is evaluating, and no one is expecting anything more from you. It is in those exact moments that the real separation happens between people who drift through life and people who rise above it. What you choose to do when you could get away with less reveals the truth of your character. It shows whether you are driven by values or by convenience, by commitment or by comfort, by inner standards or outer pressure. Anyone can perform well when the world is watching. But only a rare kind of person maintains their standards when no one expects anything at all. You have experienced this before. You've been in situations where doing the minimum was enough to get by. Maybe it was a task that required only a little effort to pass. Maybe it was a responsibility where no one checked the details. Maybe it was a promise that no one would remember. Maybe it was a challenge where halfway effort would still be acceptable. You knew you could do less and nothing terrible would happen. And the choice you made in that moment defined far more than you realized. If you chose the easy way out, you taught yourself something important, that your standard to depend on the environment, not your identity. If you chose to uphold your best even when no one cared, you taught yourself something even more important, that your integrity does not fluctuate with circumstances. This chapter is about that internal standard, the one that becomes your invisible companion throughout life, the one that decides how far you go, the one that no one else will ever fully see, but everyone will feel in the way you carry yourself. To understand the power of these unseen standards, look at your own life. The moments you are most proud of were not necessarily the moments others applauded. They were the moments where you did something difficult even though you didn't have to, the moments where you pushed further even though the minimum was enough, the moments where you stayed honest even though a lie would have been easier, the moments where you stayed consistent even though no one was checking. Those were the moments that built you. Not the recognition, not the praise, not the rewards, the quiet decision to maintain your standards in a space where no one could force you to. The truth is simple. The world rewards the outcomes of your standards, but only you witness the formation of them. Every time you choose to give less than your best simply because you can, you slowly weaken your internal structure. You may not feel it instantly, but your confidence erodes. Your self-respect dulls. Your identity becomes unstable, and your mind begins to doubt your seriousness. The next time you face a challenge, you approach it with less conviction, less belief, less power, because deep inside you know you've trained yourself to accept just enough. But when you choose to uphold your standard, even when the environment allows you to slack off, something changes deeply within you. You reinforce the belief that you can trust yourself. You build a foundation of strength that does not depend on validation. You refine a level of discipline that does not collapse under ease, and your character sharpens into something stable, reliable, and powerful. Think about the strongest people you've met. They all share one thing in common. They hold themselves to internal standards that are higher than what the world expects from them. They don't need pressure to perform. They don't need an audience to put in the effort. They don't need external reminders to honor their responsibilities. They live with a higher code, one that exists inside them, not around them. They understand that your standards define your destiny, and your destiny is written in small choices, not grand gestures. Now look honestly at your own behavior. How often do you allow yourself to get away with less? How often do you tell yourself this is enough, not because it truly is enough, but because you don't feel like pushing further? How often do you give partial effort simply because no one will notice the missing pieces? How often do you convince yourself that small shortcuts won't matter? These may seem like harmless decisions, but they form the architecture of your character. They determine whether your life moves forward or stays in place. They decide whether you become someone who respects themselves or someone who doubts themselves, because the truth is undeniable. Every time you do less than you are capable of, you are quietly training yourself to accept mediocrity. And every time you uphold your best standard, even when you don't have to, you are training yourself to become exceptional. There is a reason why people with strong private standards rise consistently, while others struggle. When your internal expectations are high, your public results naturally elevate. When your internal expectations are low, your public life reflects that weakness. Raising your standards is not about perfection. It is about alignment. Alignment between what you say you want and what you actually do. Alignment between your goals and your behavior. Alignment between your potential and your daily actions. When these elements align, you gain a sense of direction that few people ever achieve. But alignment begins where it is hardest, when you have the option to choose comfort and no one would blame you for choosing it. This is where leadership begins. Not leadership over others, but leadership over yourself. Leading your own actions. Leading your own habits. Leading your own standards. Leading your own life when no one else is involved. You become powerful when you choose the right thing without being forced. You become unshakable when you maintain your standards without needing supervision. You become unstoppable when your identity demands excellence, even when the situation does not require it. Think about the life you want, the future you imagine, the opportunities you dream of. None of them will come to you because you performed only when necessary. They will come to you because you became a person whose baseline is built on high standards, a person who doesn't collapse into laziness simply because the world isn't watching, a person whose private actions match their public goals. When you uphold your standards in silence, you cultivate something rare: self-respect. Not the shallow confidence that comes from compliments, but the deep, solid respect that comes from knowing you consistently choose the harder, better path even when no one knows. Your future self will thank you for every moment you refuse to accept less from yourself, because those private decisions are building someone stronger, wiser, steadier, and more capable than you can currently imagine. The world may never see the hours you invested in the dark. It may never witness the discipline you practiced alone. It may never understand how much effort you put into becoming who you are. But the results will speak loudly, and one day people will call you disciplined, focused, driven, or self-made, without realizing that all those qualities were built in moments where you could have done less and chose not to. Chapter 10. The strength you build when you hold yourself accountable. Accountability is one of the most powerful forces in your life, but most people misunderstand it. They think accountability is something that comes from outside. someone checking on them, someone evaluating them, someone reminding them, someone expecting something from them. And when that external accountability disappears, their discipline disappears with it. But the strongest people you will ever meet do not depend on external accountability at all. They lead themselves. They hold themselves to standards that no one enforces. They demand more from themselves than anyone else ever could. Their consistency does not come from pressure. It comes from inner responsibility. The moment you learn how to hold yourself accountable without needing anyone to watch you, your life changes. Accountability, in its true form, is the promise you refuse to break with yourself. It is the expectation you set for your own behavior, even when no one checks the results. It is the voice inside you that asks, "Did you do what you said you would do?" and refuses to accept excuses as answers. Most people never develop internal accountability because they rely entirely on external structure. They stay disciplined because of deadlines. They stay focused because of supervision. They stay consistent because someone else might notice if they fail. They behave well because someone else expects it. But this dependency becomes dangerous the moment external pressure fades, their discipline collapses, their habits fall apart, their routines break, their progress slows, their confidence weakens, and suddenly they are no longer leading their life. They are waiting for someone else to push them forward. If you want to build a life worth living, you cannot afford to live like that. You must learn how to be the one who checks on yourself, the one who evaluates your behavior honestly, the one who keeps your promises even when no one else cares if you keep them, the one who asks more from you than the world demands. This is where real strength begins. Look at the moments in your life when you felt deeply proud of yourself. Those moments were rarely the times someone else praised you. They were the times you knew you held yourself accountable when you could have easily avoided responsibility. The time you completed something without being reminded. The time you did the hard thing even though no one would reward you. The time you resisted the temptation to quit even though quitting seemed invisible and harmless. Self-accountability creates a different kind of strength, a quiet strength, a grounded strength, a strength that does not shake when the world changes, a strength that does not collapse when motivation fades. When you hold yourself accountable, you stop needing external validation. You stop depending on motivation. You stop relying on others to create structure for you. You become the structure. You become the standard. You become the reason you rise. But to build this strength, you must be willing to confront truth without running from it. Ask yourself honestly, did I follow through today? Did I honor my commitments? Did I act according to my goals? Did I behave in a way that my future self would thank me for? Did I choose discipline over comfort? Did I waste time I claimed I didn't have? Did I avoid what needed to be done? Did I choose the easy path or the right path? These are uncomfortable questions, but they are necessary. People collapse internally because they avoid these questions. They distract themselves instead of confronting their own behavior. They explain away their failures. They justify their inconsistency. They bury their guilt under entertainment, excuses, and noise. But nothing grows in denial. Growth begins the moment you refuse to lie to yourself. Self-accountability is not self-punishment. It is self-respect. Holding yourself accountable is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of strength. It means you know you are responsible for your own life. It means you understand that no one else can make you disciplined. It means you are aware that your future depends on the decisions you make today, not on the pressure others place on you. To strengthen this skill, you must create simple, honest structures that you follow even when you don't feel like it. A daily check-in with yourself, a written list of what must be done, a clear timeline, a deliberate review at the end of the day. These small practices train your brain to take responsibility for your actions. As you continue this, your identity begins to shift. You stop being someone who tries. You become someone who follows through. You stop being someone who hopes. You become someone who executes. You stop being someone who waits for motivation. You become someone who acts regardless of mood. This shift is the foundation of self-leadership. Because leadership begins not with influencing others, but with influencing yourself. Not with giving orders to others, but with giving direction to your own life. Not with supervising others, but with supervising your own choices. And the only environment where this leadership is truly tested is in private. When you begin to hold yourself accountable consistently, your confidence transforms. You no longer doubt your ability to follow through. You no longer question whether you can stay committed. You no longer wonder if you are capable of achieving your goals. You know you can, because you see yourself acting with discipline in moments where no one else even knows what you are doing. Self-accountability builds a kind of certainty that cannot be shaken, a certainty that comes from evidence, not hope, a certainty built from daily choices, not occasional effort, a certainty forged in silence, not in applause. If you want a life that does not fall apart under stress, build internal accountability. If you want to trust yourself, practice consistency in private. If you want to feel powerful, act with integrity when no one is holding you accountable. Every time you do this, you strengthen the foundation of who you are. The world may never see the work you do in silence, but it will always feel the strength that comes from it. Chapter 11: The person you are when no one celebrates you. There is a moment in every journey where progress becomes invisible, where effort goes unnoticed, where the growth you're fighting for is seen by no one but you, where the world offers no applause, no encouragement, no validation. This is the moment that decides everything, because who you are when no one celebrates you is who you truly are. Anyone can work hard when people are impressed. Anyone can stay consistent when compliments keep them motivated. Anyone can show effort when recognition fuels them. But it takes a different kind of strength, a rare kind, to keep going when your progress is silent and the world is quiet. This chapter is about that strength. People crave acknowledgement more than they realize. When someone praises your work, you feel inspired. When someone notices your discipline, you feel seen. When someone admires your behavior, you feel proud. There is nothing wrong with that. Human beings are built to respond to recognition. But recognition cannot be the source of your discipline. If your behavior depends on applause, you will collapse the moment the applause disappears. If your consistency relies on validation, you will break the moment validation fades. If your effort is fueled by attention, you will quit the moment no one is watching. Your growth must be fueled by something deeper, something internal, something silent. The strongest people you will ever meet are not the ones who receive the most praise. They are the ones who learn to move forward without it. They found a kind of commitment that does not crumble when unseen. They developed an inner engine so steady that external reward becomes unnecessary. They didn't grow because someone celebrated them. They grew because they refused to stop. Think about the beginning of any meaningful pursuit in your life. At the start, the excitement was high. People noticed your initial effort. You felt proud of your decision. You felt motivated because you were stepping into something new. But then, slowly, the recognition faded. The applause died down. The attention moved on. The only thing left was the work itself. That is the moment where most people quit, not because they are incapable, not because they lack potential. They quit because they never learned how to continue without being seen. But this is where real growth begins. Your character develops in the periods where no one acknowledges you. Your discipline sharpens in the moments where the world is indifferent. Your strength grows in silence, not in celebration. The people who reach their highest potential are the ones who understand this deeply. They do not chase applause, they chase alignment. They do not seek recognition, they seek progress. They do not depend on praise, they depend on purpose. Their commitment is not emotional, it is structural. It is built into who they are. To live this way, you must begin to value the work itself more than the reactions it produces. You must learn how to enjoy the quiet victories that only you will ever notice. You must learn how to take pride in the unseen hours, pride in the effort no one thanks you for, pride in the discipline no one claps for, pride in the consistency no one comments on. Because those are the moments that shape the life you want. Think about a time in your life when you worked on something important for a long time without anyone knowing. Maybe you improved a skill alone. Maybe you practiced a craft with no audience. Maybe you trained your mind or body silently. And when the results finally showed, people were shocked. They praised the outcome. They admired your improvement. They celebrated the achievement. But they had no idea about the private effort that created it. This is the truth behind every overnight success. The success may appear suddenly, but the work that built it happened in silence for years. You must become comfortable with being unseen. You must learn how to thrive in seasons where the world is not impressed. You must learn how to keep fighting even when no one applauds. This ability separates you from the masses. Most people want visibility before mastery. They want recognition before consistency. They want praise before discipline. But the world does not work that way. Mastery is built long before recognition arrives. Consistency is built long before anyone notices. Strength is built long before applause begins. If you cannot lead yourself without celebration, you cannot lead yourself at all. So, ask yourself the hardest question. Who are you when no one celebrates you? Do you stay disciplined or do you slow down? Do you stay committed or do you drift? Do you honor your word or do you loosen your standards? Do you move forward or do you wait for motivation? Your answer reveals your true identity. The moment you learn to continue without being acknowledged, something profound happens. You become unstoppable because you are no longer fueled by external emotion. You are fueled by internal purpose. You are no longer dependent on other people's approval. You are committed to your own evolution. You are no longer waiting for someone to celebrate you. You celebrate yourself through your actions. You rise quietly. You strengthen quietly. You grow quietly. And then one day the world will call you disciplined, gifted, focused, talented, without ever realizing everything they admire was built in years where no one clapped. Build yourself in silence. The world will eventually see the results, but only you will know what it truly took to become that person. Chapter 12. The power you gain from private sacrifice. Every person wants a stronger life, but very few want the sacrifices that create it. They want discipline without discomfort, growth without struggle, progress without resistance. But life does not bend that way. Every meaningful transformation requires a sacrifice, and the most powerful sacrifices you will ever make are the ones no one knows about. Private sacrifice is the purest form of discipline. It is the moment you give up something easy, comfortable, or pleasurable to become someone stronger, wiser, and more capable. No one praises you for it. No one encourages you to keep going. No one even knows it happened. And that is what makes it transformative. The world sees the results, but only you see the cost. Think about the people you admire. Their strength did not come from privilege, talent, or luck. Their strength came from private sacrifices, silent decisions that slowly built them into someone others respect. They said no when others said yes. They worked when others relaxed. They trained when others wasted time. They made choices that were invisible to the world but essential to their growth. Every private sacrifice is a declaration. I am willing to give up comfort to build something greater. Most people will never make this declaration because comfort is intoxicating. It keeps you still. It keeps you predictable. It keeps you dependent on feeling good. Comfort whispers, no one will know if you quit. And that whisper destroys more potential than any failure ever will. But sacrifice whispers something different. It says, no one will know, but you will. And that truth is enough to change you. To understand private sacrifice deeply, you must look at your own life. Think about the moments where you chose something uncomfortable because you knew you needed it. Maybe it was skipping a distraction to work on your dream. Maybe it was resisting an addiction that tempted you. Maybe it was studying while everyone else enjoyed themselves. Maybe it was leaving a bad habit behind even though it felt familiar. Those sacrifices shaped you. Even if the world never saw them, you became stronger because of them. Now think about the sacrifices you avoided, the times you chose pleasure instead of progress, the times you gave in to temptation because no one was watching, the times you broke promises because there were no immediate consequences, the times you kept habits that damaged you simply because they felt good in the moment. Those choices shaped you too. Every pain you carry today has roots in a sacrifice you avoided yesterday. Private sacrifice determines direction. You move forward or backward based on what you are willing to give up when no one is observing. The most dangerous lie people tell themselves is, this one small decision won't matter. But private sacrifice is not about the size of the decision. It is about the identity it builds. Every time you choose sacrifice, you strengthen your identity. Every time you choose comfort, you weaken it. You cannot become extraordinary while holding on to ordinary habits. Sacrifice demands honesty. You must acknowledge the patterns that weaken you. You must admit the behaviors that keep you stuck. You must confront the excuses that make you avoid discomfort. And once you see these truths clearly, you must decide what you are willing to give up to become someone stronger. This is where most people run. They run because sacrifice feels like loss. But sacrifice is not loss. It is exchange. It is giving up what drains you to make room for what builds you. It is surrendering who you were so you can become who you want to be. When you begin practicing private sacrifice intentionally, something changes inside you. You start feeling more in control. You start trusting yourself more. You start sensing that you can resist temptation, delay gratification, and hold your standard without needing anyone to guide you. Private sacrifice builds stability. Stability builds confidence. Confidence builds momentum. Momentum builds transformation. And all of it begins with choices no one witnesses. People talk about self-love, but they forget this. Sacrifice is one of the highest forms of self-love. You give up something now so your future self can thrive later. You protect the life you want instead of feeding the habits that destroy it. You respect your potential enough to stop betraying it in private moments. Ask yourself now, what do I need to sacrifice to become who I want to be? What must I give up so I can rise? What comfort is costing me my potential? What behavior is weakening my future? What habit must be replaced, even if no one knows I'm struggling with it? The honest answers to these questions reveal the sacrifices required for your next level. These sacrifices do not need to be dramatic. They just need to be consistent. Waking up early, turning off distractions, staying focused when you're tired, eating cleaner, reading instead of scrolling, saying no to what drains you, protecting your energy, honoring your priorities, strengthening your habits. These tiny private sacrifices compound over time into a version of you that people call disciplined, strong, dedicated, or even unstoppable. But none of those words describe what really happened. What really happened is simple. You made choices in silence that others weren't willing to make. The world might never know the sacrifices that shaped you, but you will. And that knowledge becomes your quiet power. It becomes the confidence that carries you through difficult times. It becomes the resilience that keeps you steady when others crumble. Every sacrifice you make in private becomes a weapon you carry in public. Lead yourself through those sacrifices. Honor them. Protect them. They are the price of the life you want, and they are worth it. Chapter 13. The values you live by when no one can hold you to them. Every person says they have values, principles, beliefs, standards. People love talking about what they stand for, what they believe in, and what matters to them. But values don't show themselves in conversations. Values don't show themselves in speeches. Values don't show themselves in public declarations. Values show themselves in silence. The real test of your values is not what you say you care about. It is what you choose to honor when no one can hold you accountable. Anyone can claim honesty, discipline, loyalty, respect, consistency, or ambition, but only your private actions determine whether those values are real or just words. When the world is watching, it's easy to act aligned with your values because the pressure pushes you toward your best behavior. But when the world is absent, when there are no consequences, no witnesses, and no expectations, your true values reveal themselves with brutal clarity. This chapter is about facing that truth. You must understand something essential. Values are not emotional. Values are not convenient. Values are not flexible. Real values remain intact even when they cost you something, especially when they cost you something. If your values disappear when they become inconvenient, they were never values. They were preferences. To understand this more deeply, think about honesty. Almost everyone claims to value honesty, but the true test is not whether you tell the truth when someone might find out. The true test is whether you remain honest when lying would protect you and no one would ever know. That is where value meets integrity. Think about consistency. Most people say they value consistency, but the real test is not showing up when motivation is flooding your mind. The real test is showing up when your mood collapses, your energy fades, and no one is tracking your effort. That is where value meets discipline. Think about loyalty. Many people pride themselves on loyalty, but real loyalty is not proven in public. It is proven in private moments where someone's absence makes betrayal easy. That is where value meets character. Think about respect. People say they respect others, but respect is not reflected in public politeness. It is reflected in how you treat people when they have nothing to offer you. That is where value meets humanity. Your values are the compass of your identity, and a compass only matters if you use it when the path is dark. To truly grow into someone powerful, you must learn to live by your values in your quietest moments, because those moments decide your destiny more than anything else. Look back at your life. Think about the times you honored your values even when no one asked you to. Those moments made you proud. They built trust inside you. They shaped the version of yourself that you respect today. Maybe it was refusing to give up on something. Maybe it was telling the truth even though it hurt. Maybe it was working hard without credit. Maybe it was treating someone with kindness even when the world wasn't watching. Now think about the times you betrayed your values, the private shortcuts, the small lies, the avoided responsibilities, the choices you justified because no one would find out. Those choices didn't destroy your life overnight, but they chipped away at your self-respect. They weakened the foundation you stand on. This chapter is about rebuilding that foundation. To rebuild, you must identify the values that matter most to you. Not the values that sound good, not the values others expect, but the values that you want to embody even when it's hard. Ask yourself these questions. What kind of person do I want to be when no one is looking? What behaviors do I admire in the version of myself I am becoming? What values do I want my life to reflect even in moments of silence? What principles am I willing to protect even when it costs me comfort? What standards will I refuse to break, even if no one ever finds out? Answer these honestly, and you will uncover the code you must live by. Once you know your values, you must practice them deliberately, not perform them for others. Live them, protect them, strengthen them. You won't do this perfectly. You will slip. You will fail. You will fall into old habits. That's normal. But each time you catch yourself acting against your values, you must bring yourself back. Every return strengthens your identity. Values are not built in a day. They are built through repetition. The more consistently you honor your values in private, the more automatic they become, and eventually they turn into something unbreakable, something steady, something that defines you. When you live by strong values internally, something profound happens externally. Your relationships deepen because people feel your integrity. Your opportunities expand because people trust your consistency. Your confidence grows because you respect yourself. Your discipline sharpens because your actions match your beliefs. Your life gains meaning because your daily choices align with who you want to be. This alignment is rare. Most people live in contradiction. They speak one truth and live another. They say they value discipline but choose distraction. They say they value honesty but tell convenient lies. They say they value growth but repeat the same comfortable habits. This disconnect is the root of frustration. When your values and actions misalign, your mind suffers. But when your values and actions align, you become unstoppable. Not because life becomes easy, but because you become structured from the inside, stable, grounded, guided by something deeper than moods, pressure, or circumstance. This is the goal of living by your values in private, to build a version of yourself that you can trust, even in your weakest moments. You do not need an audience to become this person. You do not need applause. You do not need validation. You only need the courage to act according to your values, even when no one can hold you to them. When your private behavior matches your deepest values, you become someone with internal authority, someone who governs themselves, someone who leads their life without needing permission or supervision. And that is the kind of person who rises, not through luck, not through talent, but through alignment with their values. Chapter 14. The work you do in silence that builds your future. There is a kind of work that never shows up on your resume, a kind of effort that never appears in your achievements list, a kind of discipline that no one will ever praise you for. This is the silent work, the work you do when the world is sleeping, when no one asks for it, when no one cares, when no one is counting, and when no one will ever give you credit. The truth about success is simple. Your future is built in silence long before it becomes visible. People often admire the final results of someone's life. They see the confidence, the stability, the strength, the discipline, the success. But they forget that every visible achievement is built on invisible hours. Hours of effort that were not celebrated. Hours of practice that were not acknowledged. Hours of discipline that were not witnessed. Hours of work that did not earn a single compliment. If you want a powerful future, you must learn to give your best in the moments where the reward is zero and the recognition is none. Most people struggle because they want progress to be seen. They want someone to notice their effort. They want proof that their hard work matters. When that proof doesn't come, they reduce their effort. They slow down. They lose consistency. They stop pushing themselves. They tell themselves it doesn't matter. And in that moment, they abandon the quiet work that would have built their future. But you cannot lead your life this way. You cannot rise if you only work when you feel seen. You cannot grow if you depend on validation. The strongest version of you is built in moments where your effort is invisible. Silent work is the difference between staying the same and becoming unstoppable. To understand this deeply, think about the skills you're proud of today. Maybe you learned something difficult. Maybe you improved a talent. Maybe you developed discipline. Maybe you became mentally stronger. None of that progress came from being observed. It came from repetition in private, from pushing through boredom and discomfort when no one encouraged you, from practicing even when you felt slow or clumsy, from refusing to quit long before you gained any visible results. Now think about the areas of your life where you feel stuck, the areas where you haven't made progress, the areas where you feel weak, inconsistent, or unfulfilled. In most cases, the reason is simple. You avoided the silent work. You avoided the consistent, invisible effort because it didn't feel rewarding enough. And without that invisible work, growth never happened. Silent work is not glamorous. It is not exciting. It is not satisfying in the moment. It sometimes feels like nothing is happening. It sometimes feels like a waste of time. It sometimes feels lonely. But it builds something extraordinary inside you, something that loud public work can never create. Silent work builds your foundation. It builds your discipline. It builds your resilience. It builds your patience. It builds your self-respect. It builds your identity. It builds your future. There will always be moments where your progress is invisible. Moments where you feel like no one understands your effort. Moments where the results are slow. Moments where you question whether you're wasting time. These moments test your character more than any failure or success ever will. Because silent work is not about the results. It is about the person you become through the effort. When you work in silence, you stop relying on external motivation. You stop needing validation to act. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You stop depending on others. You become someone who moves forward simply because forward is the direction you've chosen. This is what separates you from the person you used to be. This is what separates you from the average. This is what separates leaders from followers. Silent work forces you to grow from the inside out. When you sit down to improve yourself, even though no one will see it, you develop inner authority. When you work through frustration, even though no one is pushing you, you develop inner strength. When you show up for your future, even though the present doesn't reward you, you develop inner discipline. Most people quit right before silent work begins to show results. They cannot endure the period where effort feels invisible. But you must understand something vital. Every transformation has a silent phase, a phase where nothing seems to change on the outside, but everything is changing on the inside. A phase where your habits are developing, your identity is shifting, your mind is strengthening, and your future is forming. The world won't see this phase, but you will feel it. And if you push through this phase, you will emerge with a level of discipline and clarity that no external force can shake. Imagine your life 1 year from now if you committed to the silent work daily. Imagine the skills you would develop. Imagine the mindset you would build. Imagine the opportunities you would create. Imagine the confidence you would feel. Imagine the freedom that comes from knowing you can rely on yourself completely. All of it begins in silence. All of it begins in the unseen hours. All of it begins with work the world will never applaud. The future belongs to the person who can lead themselves through the silence. Chapter 15. What you do when there is nothing to prove. Most people live their lives trying to prove something to their family, to society, to their peers, to strangers on the internet, even to themselves. They push harder when eyes are on them. They act disciplined when others expect it. They behave well when judgment is possible. Their effort is a performance, not a principle. But the real test of character comes in moments where there is no one to impress, no one to compare yourself to, no one to challenge you, and no one to measure your progress. Moments where there is nothing to prove. What do you do then? Because your answer to that question determines the kind of life you will build. When there is nothing to prove, do you still show up? When there is nothing to prove, do you still give your best? When there is nothing to prove, do you still honor your standards? When there is nothing to prove, do you still follow through? When there is nothing to prove, do you still push yourself? These moments reveal the truth of your character. When you live without needing validation, your discipline transforms from conditional to absolute. It stops depending on situations and starts depending on identity. It stops responding to external pressure and starts flowing from internal structure. It stops being something you do and becomes something you are. This chapter is about building that identity. When you remove the need to prove yourself, something powerful happens. Your actions become cleaner. Your mindset becomes calmer. Your decisions become sharper. Instead of performing for approval, you begin acting for alignment. Instead of seeking validation, you seek progress. Instead of asking, "Who will notice?" you begin asking, "Who will I become?" You start growing for the right reasons. Most people never reach this stage. Their entire life is built around external perception. They depend on applause to feel worthy. They depend on comparison to feel secure. They depend on recognition to feel motivated. So when those things disappear, their effort collapses. When no one is watching, they lose intensity. When attention fades, so does their discipline. This is why their life never reaches its potential. Growth driven by validation is temporary. Growth driven by identity is permanent. To reach your highest potential, you must break free from the desire to prove yourself. You must stop attaching your effort to external eyes. You must learn to act the same way in private as you do in public. Not because someone is evaluating you, but because your standards demand it. Your best self does not emerge when people watch. It emerges when you watch yourself. Think about the strongest decisions you've made. They weren't made in front of a crowd. They weren't made for applause. They weren't made for recognition. They were made alone, quietly, in moments where you had nothing to prove and everything to gain. Maybe you decided to improve your life without announcing it. Maybe you let go of a habit that was destroying you. Maybe you started a practice that no one else knew about. Maybe you committed to something that only you would ever understand. These private decisions carried more weight than any public declaration ever could. Because change begins the moment you stop trying to prove something to others and start trying to become someone better for yourself. This shift unlocks a different level of discipline. When you stop performing, you stop seeking shortcuts. When you stop chasing validation, you stop doing things halfway. When you stop proving, you start improving. Your actions become real, honest, grounded. And here is the most powerful truth. When you no longer need to prove yourself, you win twice. Once internally because you gain self-respect, and once externally because the world eventually recognizes the strength you built in silence. People will admire your confidence without knowing you built it when no one was watching. People will praise your discipline without knowing it grew during months of unseen work. People will comment on your transformation without knowing the private battles you fought. They will think your growth was sudden. They will think your strength came naturally. They will think your consistency was easy. But only you will know the truth, that your transformation began in the moment you realized you had nothing to prove to anyone but yourself. To deepen this identity, you must practice 3 habits consistently. First, do important work without announcing it. Let your effort speak for you. Let your results reveal themselves naturally. Silence strengthens you. Second, set standards that do not change based on who is watching, whether people see you or not, whether they praise you or not, whether they acknowledge you or not. Your effort remains the same. That is integrity. Third, celebrate your private progress. Appreciate the moments where you acted with discipline even though no one would ever know. These moments build the quiet confidence that cannot be taken away from you. Once you live this way, something remarkable happens. Your power becomes internal. Your strength becomes stable. Your mind becomes focused. Your discipline becomes unconditional. You begin living for your own evolution, not for others' opinions. When there is nothing to prove, you become unstoppable, because your effort comes from who you are, not from what others think. Chapter 16. The choices you make when you face yourself. There are moments in life when you cannot hide behind excuses, distractions, or other people's expectations. Moments where the world grows quiet enough that you finally come face to face with yourself. No noise. No pressure. No applause. No judgment. Just you, your thoughts, your habits, and the raw truth of who you've become. Most people avoid these moments. They drown them in entertainment. They numb them with comfort. They escape them with busyness. Not because they don't want a better life. Everyone wants that. But because facing yourself requires a level of honesty that most people aren't prepared for. But to lead yourself when no one is watching, you must learn how to face yourself without fear. This chapter is about those private confrontations, the ones that don't feel dramatic but change everything. When you face yourself, you cannot pretend, you cannot perform, you cannot hide behind who you wish you were. You are forced to see the truth. What habits are shaping your future? What excuses are destroying it? What patterns keep returning? What promises keep breaking? What actions are aligned with your goals? And what actions betray them? These questions are heavy, but they are necessary, because facing yourself is the only path to leading yourself. Think about the last time you caught yourself doing something you knew was wrong for your future. Maybe it was wasting valuable time. Maybe it was falling back into a destructive habit. Maybe it was avoiding a responsibility you knew mattered. In that moment, there was no one to blame, no one to impress, no one to answer to. It was just you and the truth. And that truth is where leadership is born. People think discipline starts with motivation, but it doesn't. It starts with honesty. You cannot build a life of strength on a foundation of self-deception. You cannot rise while lying to yourself about your habits. You cannot grow while pretending your choices don't matter. You cannot lead yourself if you refuse to look at yourself clearly. The strongest individuals you will ever meet have one powerful trait. They confront themselves before anything else confronts them. They look at their flaws without running away. They look at their weaknesses without denial. They look at their habits without excuses. They look at their patterns without sugarcoating. And because they face themselves honestly, they can fix what most people ignore. The truth is simple. You cannot escape the person you are in private. You can distract yourself, but the consequences of your choices will always catch up. You can pretend, but your identity will always reflect your habits. You can ignore the truth, but your life will always mirror it. Leading yourself means stepping into these uncomfortable truths instead of avoiding them. It means acknowledging the difference between who you are and who you want to be, and then taking responsibility for closing that gap. It means admitting your role in your failures instead of blaming circumstances. It means recognizing where you are weak and choosing to become stronger, not ashamed. This kind of honesty feels painful at first, but it is unbelievably liberating. Once you face yourself, no one else can use the truth against you. Once you confront your flaws, The world loses the power to expose them. Once you acknowledge what needs to change, excuses no longer hold you hostage. You become free because you become aware, and awareness is the birthplace of power. Once you see the truth of your life clearly, you have only two choices: change it or accept that you are choosing it. Acceptance without change is surrender. It is choosing weakness. It is choosing comfort. It is choosing a smaller version of yourself. But change, real change, starts quietly, privately, internally. Change begins the moment you say, "This is where I am. This is not enough, and I'm responsible for what happens next." From that moment on, your choices become intentional. You stop wasting time because you can see how precious it is. You stop sabotaging your future because you see what it costs you. You stop lying to yourself because lies no longer protect you, they trap you. You stop choosing comfort because you finally recognize the price of staying the same. Facing yourself gives you clarity. Clarity gives you direction. Direction gives you strength. Strength gives you discipline. Discipline gives you freedom. But the process begins with honesty, the kind of honesty that only exists when no one else is watching. Look at your life now. Look at your habits. Look at your choices. Look at your excuses. Look at your effort. Ask yourself quietly, without judgment, without fear, is this who I want to be? Is this the life I want to build? Is this the standard I want to live by? Is this the version of myself I want to wake up to every day? If the answer is no, then you have already taken the first step. You have faced yourself. You have seen the truth. And now you can begin leading yourself. Leadership does not begin with controlling others. It begins with controlling yourself, your habits, your reactions, your choices, your time, your direction. And every time you face yourself without running, you grow into someone stronger, more disciplined, more aware, and more capable of becoming the person you were meant to be. The world will see the transformation eventually, but only you will ever know that it started here, in a quiet moment, alone, when you finally chose to face yourself. Chapter 17. How you act when no one will ever thank you. There is a kind of discipline that is harder than waking up early, harder than resisting temptation, harder than pushing through discomfort. It is the discipline of doing the right thing even when you know, without any doubt, that no one will ever thank you, appreciate you, acknowledge you, or even realize what you did. Most people don't realize how much their behavior depends on the expectation of appreciation. They work harder when they know someone will notice. They do good things when they know it will be acknowledged. They offer effort when they believe someone will value it. Their discipline is fueled by the possibility of gratitude. But the truth is simple. The version of you that appears when you expect nothing in return is your real self. This chapter is about that self, the one you become when your actions have no audience, no reward, no applause, and no gratitude. When no one will thank you, do you still give your best? Do you still act with integrity? Do you still choose discipline? Do you still honor your responsibilities? Do you still stay consistent? Do you still hold your standards? Your answer to these questions determines whether your life will be built on external validation or internal strength. Anyone can be kind when kindness earns admiration. Anyone can be hardworking when someone is watching. Anyone can be disciplined when there is praise on the other side. But true character appears when there is no payoff. This is the difference between people who grow and people who remain stuck. The ones who grow are willing to carry responsibilities that no one recognizes. They are willing to do what is right even when it goes unseen. They are willing to choose effort even when it benefits no one but their future selves. Think about all the small actions you've taken throughout your life that no one ever acknowledged, but still mattered. cleaning up a mess that wasn't yours, finishing work no one would check, helping someone privately without asking for credit, improving a skill alone that no one appreciated at the time, sticking to a routine no one saw, staying loyal to your values when it brought you nothing in return. These actions strengthened you, not because someone thanked you, but because you chose to do them anyway. When you act without expecting gratitude, you shift from transactional living to principled living. You move from doing things for approval to doing things for alignment. You stop performing and start becoming. And you begin to understand something that most people never learn. Gratitude from others is pleasant, but gratitude towards yourself is powerful. When you act with integrity without being thanked, you gain something deeper than external appreciation. You gain self-respect. You gain the quiet confidence of knowing your actions are guided by values, not by rewards. You gain a level of internal stability that cannot be shaken. Because when you no longer need gratitude from others, you become someone who acts from purpose, not pressure. Most people never reach this level of maturity. They grow resentful when their effort is unnoticed. They feel unappreciated and their effort declines. They feel ignored and their discipline fades. They feel unseen and their standards drop. But here is the truth few people accept. If your discipline collapses when you are not thanked, it was never discipline. It was performance. Your effort must not depend on the reactions of others. You must build a form of discipline that needs no applause, a form of integrity that needs no validation, a form of character that needs no reward, because the kind of life you want will never be built by someone who only acts for recognition. When you learn to act without the expectation of being thanked, you free yourself. You free yourself from disappointment. You free yourself from bitterness. You free yourself from emotional dependency. You free yourself from the unpredictable reactions of other people. And you begin to see your own effort differently. You begin to trust yourself more. You begin to take pride in your actions. You begin to build a life that is rooted in internal strength rather than external appreciation. This inner shift changes everything. You stop needing people to notice you. You stop needing them to applaud. You stop needing them to validate your work. You stop waiting for gratitude. And you start noticing something else. Your life begins to rise. Your skills grow because you practice even when no one celebrates it. Your discipline grows because you follow through even when no one acknowledges it. Your confidence grows because you trust yourself more than you trust praise. Your character grows because your actions are guided by who you want to be, not by what others give you in return. This is the kind of strength that makes someone truly unshakable. One day, people will admire your discipline. They will praise your work ethic. They will comment on your consistency. They will talk about your character. They will say you are responsible, dedicated, dependable. But they won't realize something important. Everything they admire was built in moments where no one thanked you. The hours you put in alone, the choices you made silently, the effort you gave without appreciation, the good you did without recognition, the discipline you practiced without reward. Those moments created the version of you that others admire later. Lead yourself in the moments where no one will ever thank you, because those are the moments that shape your destiny. Those are the choices that build your strength. Those are the decisions that create your future. Do what is right long before anyone notices. Do what matters long before anyone appreciates it. Do what aligns long before anyone praises it. Because your life will not be shaped by the gratitude you receive. It will be shaped by the discipline you practice when no one will ever thank you. Chapter 18. Who you become when you choose the hard path alone. There are two paths in every quiet moment, the easy path and the hard path. One requires little effort, little discomfort, little discipline. The other demands strength, patience, resilience, and a willingness to endure discomfort without anyone noticing or applauding your choice. Most people choose the easy path because it promises immediate comfort. But comfort is a liar. It gives you relief today and regret tomorrow. Your character is shaped not by the path you choose in public, but by the path you choose when no one else will ever know. This chapter is about the person you become when you repeatedly choose the hard path alone. Every meaningful transformation in human history came from someone who chose difficulty over ease, not because someone forced them to, not because they wanted to look impressive, not because they had something to prove, but because they understood one truth. The easy path keeps you the same, but the hard path changes you. Think about the times in your life where you felt truly proud of yourself. Those moments were never born from comfort. They were born from difficulty, from the nights you pushed yourself, from the mornings you didn't want to get up but did, from the temptations you resisted, from the habits you built slowly, painfully, consistently, from the uncomfortable decisions you made because your future deserved more from you. Now think about the moments you regret. They almost always came from choosing the easy path, the shortcuts, the avoidance, the excuses, the moments where you convinced yourself that one small decision wouldn't matter. But small decisions compound. Every easy choice becomes a brick in the wall of a life you don't want to live. Choosing the hard path in private is not about suffering. It is about evolving. It is about becoming a person whose strength comes from within, not from external pressure. It is about building a mindset that can withstand difficulty because it was trained in difficulty. When you choose the hard path alone, you are developing qualities that few people ever master. You build resilience because you learn how to endure discomfort without collapsing. You build discipline because you act according to your goals, not your moods. You build confidence because you prove to yourself that you can handle what most people avoid. You build integrity because your actions reflect your values even when no one is watching. You build mental toughness because you train your mind to move through resistance instead of running from it. And the more you choose the hard path alone, the stronger your identity becomes. There is a powerful shift that happens when you stop waiting for the world to challenge you and begin challenging yourself. You gain control over your direction. You stop drifting through life. You stop living reactively. You stop depending on external struggle to force growth. You become your own source of pressure, your own teacher, your own leader. But choosing the hard path is not glamorous. The world won't see you waking up early. It won't see you practicing alone. It won't see you studying quietly. It won't see you resisting your addictions. It won't see you putting in extra effort. It won't see you choosing growth over comfort. And because the world doesn't see it, most people abandon the hard path too soon. They want growth without pain, progress without patience, success without sacrifice, mastery without struggle, strength without accountability. But nothing valuable is built on ease. There is a part of you that knows this, a part of you that respects the hard path, even if you fear it, a part of you that admires people who choose it, a part of you that feels alive when you overcome something difficult. That part is your potential calling you forward. Every time you choose the hard path, even in private, you feed that potential. You strengthen it. You move closer to the life you want. And every time you choose the easy path, you shrink that potential a little bit more. Ask yourself honestly, what hard choices am I avoiding? What difficult habits am I refusing to build? What discomfort am I choosing to escape? What growth am I delaying because I want life to feel easy? These questions reveal the battle between your present self and your future self. Choosing the hard path alone is not about being harsh on yourself. It is about being loyal to your future. It is about defending the life you want from the impulses that destroy it. It is about treating your goals with the respect they deserve. It is about understanding that your dreams will not bend for your comfort. You must bend your comfort for your dreams. When you begin consistently choosing the hard path in private, you develop a kind of strength that the world cannot take away from you, a strength that does not disappear under stress, a strength that does not fade when motivation dies, a strength that grows even in silence. And eventually something remarkable happens. The hard path no longer feels hard. It becomes normal. You become someone who seeks growth instead of comfort, someone who prefers effort over ease, someone who moves toward challenges instead of away from them, someone who finds purpose in difficulty, someone who sees resistance as an opportunity, not an obstacle. This is how leaders are built, quietly through thousands of hard choices made when no one else is watching. The world will see your strength someday, but only you will know where it came from the nights you pushed through resistance, from the discomfort you embraced, from the discipline you built alone, from the countless hard paths you chose in silence. Be the person who chooses the hard path when the easy one is available. Be the person who grows when others shrink. Be the person who rises when others remain the same. Be the person who leads themselves even when no one will ever know. Chapter 19. The life you build when you refuse to lower your standard. Every day you are offered a choice. Lower your standard to match your mood, or raise your behavior to match your standard. Most people do the first. They let their moods decide their effort. They let their feelings determine their consistency. They let their circumstances dictate their discipline. And because of this, they live a life shaped by impulse instead of intention. But there is another type of person. Rare, steady, powerful. A person who refuses to lower their standard, even when it's inconvenient. Even when they feel tired. Even when no one expects anything from them. Even when no one will ever notice the difference. This chapter is about becoming that person. Your standards are the invisible ceiling or the invisible fuel of your life. Lower them, and your life sinks. Raise them, and your life rises. But here is the truth most people never understand. Your standards don't show themselves in public. They show themselves in private moments, in the decisions no one sees. Your real standard isn't the one you talk about. Your real standard is the one you practice when your effort brings no immediate reward. It's easy to say you have high standards when things are going well. It's easy to say you want greatness when you feel motivated. It's easy to act disciplined when someone is watching. But what about the moments when you are alone, unmotivated, and no one will know whether you did your best or not? That is where your true standard lives. A high standard is not a sentence, it is a commitment to your future self, a commitment to the life you want, a commitment to the identity you are building. When you refuse to lower your standard, you build a life that reflects strength instead of excuses. You rise above the emotional chaos that destroys most people's potential. You build trust with yourself. You develop a stable identity that does not collapse under pressure. To understand the power of this, think about the times you lowered your standard, the days you didn't show up fully, the habits you let slide, the work you did halfway because no one will know, the shortcuts you took because the consequences were invisible. Did you walk away from those moments proud or disappointed? Did you feel strong or weaker? Did you move closer to your goals or further away? Lowering your standard always feels harmless in the moment, but it creates small cracks in your identity. And identity is what discipline is built on. When you lower your standards repeatedly, you begin to believe that you are the kind of person who needs convenience, who avoids effort, who chooses comfort over consistency. Your confidence drops because confidence comes from evidence, and you keep giving yourself evidence that you can't rely on your own word. But when you hold your standard, even once, something powerful happens. You feel stronger, you feel clearer, you feel more disciplined, you feel more connected to your future. That feeling is the beginning of internal power. You must understand something essential. Your standards shape you far more than your environment does. Your environment influences you, yes, but your standards decide how you respond to that environment. A person with low standards can have opportunities and waste them. A person with high standards can have nothing and still rise. Standards decide your direction. To raise your standards, you must stop compromising with your own excuses. You must stop allowing your mood to determine your effort. You must stop letting temporary emotions rewrite long-term goals. You must stop betraying your future for present comfort. This requires consistency, but more importantly, it requires courage, the courage to demand more from yourself, especially when it would be easy to demand less. Imagine two versions of you standing side by side. One version lowers their standards whenever life feels difficult. They lose momentum, they lose confidence, they lose connection with their goals, they stay stuck, and slowly, their dreams fade into regret. The other version refuses to lower their standards. They still struggle, no one escapes that, but they carry themselves differently. They push when others pause. They stay consistent when others collapse. They rise when others retreat. And slowly, quietly, they build a life that people admire without ever seeing the private decisions that created it. Which version do you want to become? Your answer is not found in your words, it is found in your decisions. When you choose to maintain your standard in private, even once, you step into the identity of the second version. Do it repeatedly, and your life transforms. This transformation does not require perfection. It requires insistence, the insistence that your standard is non-negotiable, the insistence that your future matters more than your mood, the insistence that who you are becoming deserves more effort than how you feel today. One day people will look at your life and call you disciplined, structured, consistent, reliable. But only you will know the truth, that everything they admire was built in moments where you refused to lower your standard, even when you could have gotten away with it. This is how leaders are formed, not through public greatness, but through private standards. Chapter 20. The leader you become when you govern yourself. There is a moment in every person's life where they realize that no amount of advice, motivation, or external structure can create the life they want. No mentor can do it for them. No friend can hold them accountable forever. No partner can manage their discipline. No environment can shape their identity permanently. Eventually, you must become the one who governs yourself. Self-government is the highest form of leadership. It is the moment where you stop being controlled by emotions, impulses, weakness, moods, excuses, and fear. It is the moment where your life stops being reactive and becomes intentional. It is the moment where you rise into a version of yourself that leads from within, not from pressure. This chapter is about becoming that leader, the leader of your own life. When you govern yourself, you take responsibility for your thoughts, your habits, your reactions, your choices, and your direction. You no longer need someone to push you. You no longer need someone to supervise you. You no longer need someone to motivate you. You become your own source of structure. And once you reach this point, life changes permanently. To understand this deeply, think about how much of your life has been influenced by external control. School taught you when to show up. Work told you what to do. Society told you what is expected. People around you shaped how you behaved. But when you are alone, none of that exists. There are no rules, no reminders, no schedules, no expectations, no observers. Just you. And who you are in that space determines the truth of your leadership. Most people collapse when external structure disappears. They lose focus, they lose momentum, they lose discipline. Not because they are incapable, but because they never learned how to govern themselves. They were trained to follow, not to lead. Trained to react, not to direct. Trained to be controlled, not to take control. But if you want the life you envision, one defined by strength, purpose, stability, and growth, you must evolve into someone who governs their own mind and behavior with clarity. When you govern yourself, you become steady, even when life is unstable, focused even when distractions multiply, disciplined even when emotions shift, driven even when motivation disappears, honest even when truth is uncomfortable, consistent even when no one checks your progress. That is real leadership. Not loud, not dramatic, not performative. Quiet, internal, unshakable. Self-government begins with two questions. What kind of person am I when no one is watching? And what kind of person do I want to become regardless of who is watching? Your answer to the first question reveals the leadership you currently have. Your answer to the second question reveals the leadership you must grow into. To govern yourself, you must recognize that your life is made of systems, not wishes, identity, not moods, habits, not hopes, principles, not impulses. Your job is to design a mind and a structure that you can trust, even on your weakest days. A structure that does not collapse under stress or emotion. A structure that stays consistent because it is built on values, not feelings. You govern yourself by setting standards you do not negotiate with, creating routines you do not abandon, making decisions based on who you want to be, not how you feel, holding yourself accountable to your own promises, choosing long-term growth over short-term relief, acting with integrity when no one knows your choices. Every time you make a decision from discipline instead of mood, you strengthen your leadership. Every time you follow through on a promise to yourself, you strengthen your leadership. Every time you choose responsibility instead of excuses, you strengthen your leadership. This is how internal authority grows. Slowly, quietly, consistently. Eventually, you become someone you trust, someone you respect, someone you listen to, someone you follow. This is the paradox of self-leadership. You become both the leader and the follower of your own life. The part of you that sets the standard leads, the part of you that executes follows, and together they build a version of you that is unbeatable. When you reach this level of leadership, something shifts permanently. You no longer fear challenges. They activate you. You no longer avoid responsibility. You embrace it. You no longer wait for the right moment. You create it. You no longer collapse under pressure. You stabilize yourself. You become a force. But perhaps the most powerful part of governing yourself is this. Nothing external can take your power away. People can disappoint you, but they cannot derail you. Situations can change, but your discipline remains. Life can become difficult, but you stay grounded. Motivation can fade, but your behavior stays steady. The world can stop watching, but you do not stop leading yourself. This is the kind of strength that creates an extraordinary life. A life built from intention instead of impulse. A life built from values instead of emotions. A life built from discipline instead of circumstance. A life built by someone who leads themselves. And as you continue walking this path, you will notice something others never experience. A deep, quiet pride. A pride that comes from knowing you built yourself. No one carried you. No one pushed you. No one forced you. You rose because you governed your own mind with clarity and determination. That is the leadership that lasts. That is the leadership that shapes a destiny. That is the leadership that changes everything. Outro: when you lead yourself, your life follows. There comes a point in every journey where you look back and realize something important. Every moment that changed you, every strength you built, every layer of discipline you developed, every piece of confidence you earned. None of it came from being watched, admired, or praised. It came from the quiet, private decisions you made when the world wasn't paying attention. This entire audiobook has been guiding you toward one truth. Your real life is shaped in silence. Not in the noise. Not in the spotlight. Not in the moments where others expect something from you, but in the moments where you expect something from yourself. When no one checks on you. When no one reminds you. When no one holds you accountable. When no one applauds your effort. When no one notices your progress. When no one sees the work you're doing. It is in these private spaces that your identity is formed and your future is built. Most people wait for permission to grow. They wait for perfect conditions. They wait for encouragement. They wait for the right time. They wait for an audience. But if you've listened closely, you know by now that real transformation does not wait. It begins the moment you decide to lead yourself. And that leadership is not loud. It does not demand attention. It does not seek validation. It does not collapse under silence. It is quiet, steady, intentional, internal. You have walked through chapters about discipline, values, standards, integrity, accountability, and sacrifice. You have seen how each private decision shapes not just your day, but your destiny. And now, in this final chapter, it all comes together. Because if there is one message you must carry with you after this audiobook, it is this. When you lead yourself, your life has no choice but to follow. People spend their lives trying to fix their circumstances without ever fixing their habits. They chase better opportunities without becoming better people. They seek external success without building internal stability. But life does not change because your environment changes. Life changes when you change. When you lift your standards, your life rises to meet them. When you strengthen your habits, your future strengthens with them. When you act with discipline, your results transform. When you honor your values, your direction becomes clear. When you trust yourself, your confidence becomes unshakable. And when you govern yourself, the way you think, behave, react, and commit, you become someone the world cannot ignore. The person you are becoming is built in the uncelebrated hours, the hours where you choose effort over ease, growth over comfort, purpose over distraction, integrity over shortcuts, consistency over excuses. And one day the world will see the strength you've built in silence. They will call you disciplined, focused, reliable, unstoppable. They will admire your confidence, your work ethic, your stability. But they will never truly understand that your transformation was private long before it was public. That is the beauty of self-leadership. It creates a life that looks strong on the outside because it is strong on the inside. As you move forward from here, carry the lessons of this audiobook with you, not as inspiration that fades, but as principles that guide your life. You don't need constant motivation to stay consistent. You don't need applause to act with integrity. You don't need supervision to maintain your standards. You don't need reminders to honor your commitments. You only need the courage to lead yourself, especially when no one is watching. And if this audiobook gave you strength, clarity, or direction, if it helped you see yourself differently, if it inspired you to build a stronger life from the inside out, Then make sure you subscribe to Prestige Audiobooks for more daily mindset journeys. Like, share, and comment to support the growth of this channel and to help others discover these messages. Because your life becomes powerful the moment you decide to lead it. Silence is not your weakness, it is your training ground. And from this day forward, you are no longer waiting for leadership from the outside. You are becoming the leader you needed. Your future begins now, and it begins with you. The world may not be watching, but your future self is. Lead yourself well.